Hi, everyone. How are you? That's great. I'm glad to hear it. I am John Michael Bailey, and welcome to the Wellspring Digital Chat, where we interview marketing experts. Eh, there's a there's some shadiness involved, some backroom dealings. There may be some Russian mafia involved, but it doesn't matter. All that matters is that we get some really great marketers to agree to come on this show. And we're grateful to them for doing that. Anyway, I obviously have some mental problems. And Gynn is one of my content people, meaning we both live, love, and preach the importance of great content. It's a fellowship of sorts, I believe, a club, like the Mickey Mouse Club, but smarter. Yes, and we are weird. I am the weirdest, probably. But anyway, I'm very excited to geek out with Anne about content. So, Anne, welcome,
Thank
and
you.
a moment to introduce yourself to these good people.
Yeah. So I'm Ann Ginn, and the funny thing, I always tell people my parents probably thought I wasn't going to be a great speller because my first and last name only have 7 letters and 4 of them are N's. So my mother does not like to hear it. So if you're watching, I'm sorry, Mom. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's where it goes from it. And yet I built a career out of writing and all things content from that. So it's kind of funny of how I've entered into this world of multiple letters.
You took that challenge and you ran with it.
I did. I did. I always like a good challenge from that. And so that's where I took, went into journalism and then took my career and have been on my own company called G-Force Communication, but where I work and where we talk and where you and I have connected of all things content marketing from that of working with the Content Marketing Institute. I do some coaching and training on content. And so I keep the words going.
We got to keep the words going. Somebody's got to keep the words going. And we're definitely going to get into that. I mean, whenever I'm reading really good content on the Content Marketing Institute website, there's a good chance that Anne has either written it or edited it. So thank you for that. I'm excited to have you, and I'm really looking to get waist deep in some content marketing. So put your waders on. Anne, are you ready?
I am ready. I
All right.
think. I don't know. We'll try.
Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. I'll be good. So let's start. Let's talk about stock photography. Everyone says they hate it, and yet it is still widely used. In a recent Content Marketing Institute post, you tell marketers to create their own stock photography. I love this idea, and I wonder, can you talk about what you mean here and maybe talk about any potential roadblocks they should look out for when creating their own stock photography?
Yeah. So it's one of those things, and it's interesting, right? We start off with photography. We're talking about words, but content is more than I would say just words. But I'm a word person, so I'll never say just
Absolutely.
words. To get into the visual aspect, and when you're trying to pick a photo or whatever, how many computers and I work in a marketing field, so there's not a lot of dynamic factory photos and all
Right.
that kind of stuff. So we end up using stock photos. There are a ton of great resources, and yet we probably see the same dozen repeatedly used because let's think about it. They pop up at the top of the search for whatever you're looking, person with
Yep.
computer, open screen, or something like that. So as a user, that's what prompted me to write the article is frustration in seeing it. And what I'm suggesting is most companies are doing some kind of photo shoot at some time. Or they could hire a photographer for fairly not a heavy investment, right?
Mhm.
To come into their office when people are there and shoot standard photos. So that person at the computer, why not make it one of your employees from that? Don't make it you, but make it one of your employees sitting. Somebody picking up a phone. I know that's or texting. From that, I went old fashioned for the way,
Phone.
right? Remember
Phone.
offices and people picked up phones. So that kind of thing of create a shoot list when you're and then bring in a photographer. If you're doing a case study, and Capital One does this, and I just saw it this morning of Antonelli's Cheese Shop, and they have a commercial of this couple, and it's just for their small business campaign. But I see that couple in other imagery where they don't identify them as a case study, right? They're
Mm,
small business people. And so they use the art they've taken from that commercial shoot or from a case study profile, whatever you're doing, and they're using that for other things. So
mm.
that's kind of what I'm talking about. If look, it's not that hard to start exploring outside of stock.
Yeah, it makes a big difference too, especially if if you're working with that company and you say, "Oh, there's Ted or there's Lisa or whatever."
Right.
Um,
Yeah, there's
yeah,
added benefits. Yeah,
there's that.
good point.
Maybe they should be a little bit careful about how nice the photos look, so they don't look like stunt. I'm totally kidding.
But
Take
no,
the
I think you
advice.
have a great point, right? The stock
Yeah.
photo, and you've got diverse and inclusive representation in this stock photo, and I do a thing on diversity inclusion, some of my content, and I found this stock photo that helpfully illustrates it. However, everybody's perfectly polished. It looks like no one ever worked from home in their life, and they're
Right.
all ready for the biggest meeting of their lives.
Right.
Well, that's actually outdated.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah,
how things work.
absolutely. Yeah, we're all just winging it now.
Exactly.
So do you ever get the sense that some companies are using stock content marketing, meaning that they are creating so much of the same cliche content that is already out there? I mean, do you think companies are getting better at creating real, useful, and impactful content?
I think the smart companies are getting better
There you
at
go.
using real content from it. I think you're right, and part of what I look at that stock content is the idea that somebody says we should be doing this.
Hmm.
We should be doing this social media channel. We should have a blog. We should do this without a real strategy behind it.
There's no why.
Right. Right. It's just we should. And then it becomes a factory like, right? Of we need to produce this widget. We're not measuring it. It doesn't matter. We just need to get it out so somebody inside our company sees that we're doing it. And we never think about the audience.
Mm.
In fact, we're writing for our internal executive who said we should do this from it.
Right, right.
And the other part of it is, and this is fortunately this is improving, but it's an SEO game. So
Mm.
people think for search engines of the days, and I remember I was in a meeting with somebody who were promising, like, we'll just start all these microsites and we'll just put all these keywords in there and sentences. And I was cringing. And this was probably 15 years ago. And that's what they were selling was really keyword stuffing. And I'm
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, no, that's not even 15 years ago. It wasn't a smart move. But today it's a detrimental move. It's not
absolutely.
even just a bad move. It's not going to produce results. It's going to have negative effects. And so companies are getting smarter about that kind of thing of providing content that people really want or will need probably because we talk about content as people want. Most of the time it's content people need
Yeah.
at some point. We're not all searching for great content out there.
Well, you had a post recently on the CMI blog, I believe, that was about the idea of doing more with less, where you're focusing on creating more impactful content and less just churn.
Right.
Is that is that kind of a good summation of that post?
Yeah, I think, and there's a couple of reasons for that, right? It's going deep or going substantive, I should say. It
Right.
doesn't Deep doesn't mean long. It just means substantive and valuable. And then kind of almost repurposing that if you have to be on every platform, because I do know that sometimes you have to do things that aren't the smartest move because because people are involved, right? There's an
Hmm.
executive, you've got to have a presence there. But how can you do that in a way that you still get substantive content that maybe you don't publish as frequently, maybe you're repackaging, but yeah, no, I think you've got it exactly right.
I think it's important, and unfortunately, the machines are against us because speaking of bad content, I want to get your thoughts on AI generated content marketing. I know Google has stated that AI generated content is technically against their guidelines, but people are still doing it. So, do you think AI can be used effectively for content marketing, or is it just another dirty shortcut that's unfortunate but not going away?
I think it sounds attractive, and I think there are uses for it. It is interesting because it was just within the past couple weeks that they came out saying we consider that spam content.
Hmm.
My thing is, right, if you detect it,
Right, exactly.
the better
Exactly.
it gets, the less detectable It is. And we all have searched for something at one point. I was watching a TV show the other day and I wondered how old one of the people on the the actors was. So I did the Google search and then I come up with this, you know, obviously AI generated bio of they
Right.
enjoy this. And you're like, what? It was weird. Anyway, so that kind of content's obvious. But when you have places, and this is a common example, so forgive me for those of you who've already heard it, when you have the Washington Post
Mhm.
using AI generated content. And they do it, and this is from my small town newspaper background. They do it for election results because they have a huge area, so
Sure.
they can feed the election results and get basic content out. So for those things right now, I think it works. Is it a shortcut that people will say, "Oh, we don't need to hire writers, we don't need to have creators on the team"? I think that's a long way off, if ever.
Mhm.
But certainly probably in all our lifetimes, from that it's not gonna happen to the detriment of all content is AI generated. Because when you get it, it's a dirty shortcut, but it's not a shortcut because you actually have to edit more
That's the
to make it
exactly.
livable.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem is I think a lot of companies are just going with the AI content as is, and that's where you make the biggest mistake. That's when it looks like, I don't know, a 3-year-old wrote it. A
Yeah,
3-year-old computer wrote it.
right. Worse than homemade, right? There's
Yeah.
there's the
Yeah.
crafty, it's homespun, and then there's the, oh my gosh, do they even know what they're talking about? And that's actually, as you point out, it's riskier to do that than to do nothing.
I mean, I think it seems a general rule of thumb, and I'm speaking to an editor here that all content should be edited. I am not a fan of just you know write it and post it. I know some people are big on that. I'm sure. I don't know if you agree or not, but
I've I I do I have to admit I've been there on both sides from it.
mm,
Um, but yeah, no, I love a good editor when I'm writing. I love a good editor who kind of pokes and prods most of the time, right? We all get
right.
the feedback like, no, this doesn't make
Eh,
sense.
You're
Like it
not
does.
getting where it's the feel that I'm.
Right, right. So I say that with knowing that, but that editing thing, you can tell a difference in that usually from that,
Mm,
if you've seen the raw copy from that, and it's really two pairs of eyes too.
mm,
So I know, and I'm guilty of this. When I write, I know exactly what I'm saying and why I'm saying it. But to have somebody read it, they miss the point that I was trying to make. Well, that's helpful to me because I'm never going to catch it because I always know what I was talking about.
Well, plus you get so married to that piece of content because you've worked on it so much that you miss the stupid little things like, misspellings
Yeah.
or maybe a word that is not misspelled, but it's the wrong word.
Right. Right.
So
Right. Yep.
you
Been
also
there.
have an article in CMI warning against using PR metrics to show the value of content marketing. So I was talking to Janet Driscoll Miller about the importance of measuring your marketing against actual business goals. So
Mhm.
does your marketing improve the bottom line is sort of the point she's constantly trying to make. And I wonder, do you think marketers are still obsessed with these vanity metrics? Are we ever going to get past marketing as a you know popularity contest?
I think it's a really good question. And
Thank
I
you.
and I as well, because here's the thing. I think marketers are scared.
Hmm.
Right? I hear so many, and this drives me crazy, of saying, "I got into marketing, I get into creating content, so I didn't have to do numbers." And to me, some of the best numbers come from stories. Some of the best stories are created through numbers.
Yeah.
So I think you're in a field of people who try to avoid the business side, the finances, the all that that's not why they went into marketing. But those days are leaving us quickly.
Yes.
And for older people who went into marketing where you couldn't measure everything, right? You sent the direct mail piece out and it was about how many returned it or mentioned it when they went into a store, to now where you can follow your customer from the moment they touch something on your digital presence and continue to follow them from it. That's a different world. And
Hmm.
so that's where I think with marketers, now that we're measuring stuff, now that we can measure it, and more importantly, now that executives know marketing can be measured, you're having an expectation on the bottom line, that return on investment. And there's a whole conversation to be had around that. But I think to survive, not just to survive, but to lead the conversation. So it isn't like I wrote this blog, it didn't lead to any sales, blogs don't work, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which is kind of where a lot of people get into with content marketing, of people who don't understand it. Like, well, no, the blog was never supposed to lead to a direct sale. That was not the purpose. If it did, great, but that would be the anomaly from it. And that's where marketers today should be taking the lead in identifying the metrics and the process that is involved to get to that bottom line from it, to help educate the C-suite, because we know that the C-suite or whoever's in charge is going to want to know, you're spending this much, how much does that give me in return?
Yeah, I mean, but I think you also have to establish a fine line between everything being data driven and bottom line driven, and you still need to, you know, in my opinion, connect with the reader or the viewer or the watcher, whatever you want to call them,
Right.
in some meaningful way.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, and maybe that gets back into the whole AI argument, but I mean, it seems like the churn, it's like this balance of churn versus keywords versus bottom line versus good content, so
And that's what I'm saying. It's a great opportunity for the marketer to shape the story,
right.
the internal story of what this is supposed to do from it. I had, talking about PR, and that's why I wrote the piece. So I've had done PR work and had PR clients who were so excited to get, we would issue something on the wire and they'd have this, look, people in Alaska read it and this kind of stuff. It got placement. And they would be all excited at these reports. And I'm like, I didn't tell them because they were excited and they're paying me. But it didn't, who cares if somebody in Alaska read that
Yeah.
you're doing this event in your community next week? It's not going to help you. But they were flattered. And I think that's what you're talking about. Impression numbers and vanity metrics are flattering, and people like me. I call those people like me numbers.
Yeah.
We all like to be liked.
When we do a press release at Wellspring, for some reason, I can't forget the news outlet. There's this online magazine in Buffalo that always runs the story, and my wife's from Buffalo, so I'll be like, "Honey, look." It's completely meaningless, but I don't know. She likes it, so
You never know, right?
Go Bills. Sorry. Anyway, so
That's okay. I'm supportive of the Bills.
Are you? That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, you've just gone up a notch in my family. So I'm married into it. I'm forced to be a Bills fan. So but they're fun. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Anyway. So you've been working with the Content Marketing Institute for some time now. And I remember God, this was at least 10 years ago, probably more. I was talking to a colleague, and I mentioned the term content marketing, and they thought that it was something that I just made up. They were like, I think he said something like, that sounds like multi-level marketing or something. He thought it was like some kind of new scam or something.
Yeah.
And I assured him to the contrary. And I told him, hey, there's even an institute for content marketing. He was like, oh, okay. Kind of as a sign of its legitimacy. So, look how far we've come. Now it's like, you can't talk about marketing without content marketing, but, I'm curious if you could maybe throw on your crazy hat and look in your crystal ball and tell me what you think is the future of content marketing.
Yeah, it's an interesting, right? Going back even 10 years from that. And I still, for some family members, they still don't get it of how I've explained it. And they're like, anyways, it's just been an interesting conversation from it. But whatever the phrase is, whatever the terminology, the idea of using content to connect and build an audience that becomes your customer base is only going to amplify.
Mhm.
Because we have so many different channels to reach people, but more importantly, because people are choosing resources to learn, to know, to be entertained. They have so many more choices out there in what they're doing. And so delivering content that people like, 10 years, probably even 10 years ago, we wouldn't have said, it was a big deal to get a show made for broadcast television or even for a cable television for somebody who's those creators. And now people are on YouTube watching homemade videos, and they could spend hours doing it because it entertains them, right? They're getting what they want. And so that's where I think, from a marketing standpoint of using content for good, not just for selling, people these days are not, and the research shows the younger generation specifically are not used to, when a commercial comes up. I was brought up in an era where, yes, the commercial comes on. That's when you go to the kitchen or you take your break.
Right.
And there were these natural breaks in television. But now it's not like that. So that disruptive advertising, those disruptions to their experience, they're not going to be responding to. In fact, they're going to be repulsed by it. Repulsed is a strong word, but repelled, I think, from it. So they're going to look for those experiences, and few of them are judging and evaluating, where does this come from, to do that, to go, oh, well, this is made by company ABC, so they're just trying to get me to buy company ABC products. If it's good content, if it's a B2B audience that teaches me something that helps advance my skills, I'm going to be appreciative of the content and not be like, oh, they're just trying to sell me something, if it's well done.
Right. I think two things there. One is Gen Z and Gen Alpha scare the crap out of me. They are wow. My daughter's 14, and I watch her just absorb media and its insanity. It makes my head hurt. But anyway, sorry, I'm just trying to make myself look as old as possible.
That's okay. I'm farther.
But I think it speaks to the point that I read a book. Oh man, I forget the author's name. I actually interviewed her on here. Anyway, it was about marketing to Gen Z, and it was about the idea that while seemingly it may look like they're just scrolling, when they hook on to something, they do a deep dive. And if you're just shallow with your content, I think that's to the detriment, and you may lose potential customers that way.
Right.
I mean, do you agree?
Yeah. Well, and you have the chance, once they've grabbed onto a piece of content, you can help direct them to the rest of your related content. You can make it easy for them to do that, and that's, I look at YouTube serving it up, right? Recommended videos and stuff like that. If you have all the videos, for example, then they're going to keep putting up your videos. But the minute they run out of your stuff, they're going to go to somebody else. YouTube's recommending somebody else. And it's a great opportunity to keep going down that path. And that's, again, right, that's that focus. That's going deep from it and not trying to do keyword stuffing of the old days and this surface level content just so you have content up there. It's about building a content relationship with a consumer from that. And that's pretty powerful.
I like that. Building a content relationship with the consumer. I think that is the absolute best way I've heard it summed up. And I'm going to steal that and use it ad nauseum. And I may or may not give you full credit.
I'm good. So, let's just spread the word. I don't care about credit.
Preach, sister. So I think we can both agree that content marketing is not going anywhere. It's going to continue its rise in importance, anyway. And but the focus needs to be on the quality of the content and connecting with the reader, the consumer.
Yeah. Keeping it top of mind. John Deere did it in the 1800s. This isn't anything new. It's maybe a new phrase. But the opportunities to distribute content to people are far different than what John Deere had in those days.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that example is almost overused, but I think it's still totally necessary for people to understand that this is not a new concept. The only thing that is different is the technology surrounding it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's worked.
Well, and thank you so much for coming on here and geeking out with me on some content. There's a lot of really great stuff in here, and so I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the chance to talk all things content. You made it easy. It's always fun.
See ya.
Thanks, John.